Guys, the goal of this video is real simple. We're going to be listening to some Moonlight Sonata together. We'll laugh some, we may even cry some, and we'll definitely learn a few things along the way. So, grab a hot drink or a cold drink if you prefer, and let's listen to some Beethoven. Two things from the beginning here. First of all, you see this word sempre pianissimo. Sempre PP means be quiet throughout. That word is sometimes translated sempre as always, but maybe think of it's a better way to think about maybe it's like throughout, like continue to be piano. Basically, Beethoven's saying don't start out then get really loud by measure two. He just kind of keep it on the quiet side for a while here. But then also senza sordina. Senza sordina means without the mutes. How do you play piano? Without mutes, well, you put your pedal down. When your pedal's down, the mutes that push down the strings then come up, and all the sound rings together. So Beethoven's telling you to play this without the mutes. Put the pedal down. Now, the degree of which you do that has been debated for probably as long as this piece has been around. At least my entire life, people who taught me piano's entire life. Like, do you literally put your foot down and don't lift it up the entire piece? Or do you kind of put your foot down and kind of, stagger it once in a while, give us a clear pedal? That is kind of a point of debate. But the other big thing I want to point out here is the second chord of this piece is sweet. Like, we just start out with this. This is pretty standard stuff. I mean, it's a cool sound. It's a cool texture, but it's pretty standard. It's just a minor chord. What's really cool, though, is the second chord of the entire piece. Instead of doing any changes, we might expect something like this. But instead, we just get moved just the left hand. That's a cool second chord. I think that's really just sets this piece off on the right track. Like, why is this piece so famous? I mean, that's a killer first two chords. Just C sharp minor, move just the bass. All right, let's keep going here. This is Paul Pittman here, and I'm already liking this recording because he's not going too slow. We noticed at the beginning that Beethoven said cut time, meaning the half note gets the beat. Now, he does say adagio sostenuto, so like a slow, sustained adagio, but the half note's the beat. You have heard this piece probably in your life played really slowly like this, and you think people are literally going to cry on every single note, but it takes forever. It's so boring. And we're also not that interested. Every single note is too drawn out. So I think Paul here is doing a great job of kind of grouping things together and making it you're interested in the big picture. And what you notice that did is by the end of these first few measures here, we've really clearly just finished the intro. The real piece is just not where I cut off. The real piece starts here. I said real piece. I mean main melody. You know what I mean. Not the piece. The piece has begun, but the tune is this up on top here. All right, let's keep going. All right, that is our first tune. The first tune is now complete. The first tune of this is pretty cool, right? We go from here, very sad, and then even our first tune doesn't end in the key it started in. It started in C sharp minor, but we ended up in E major. And then, funny enough, check what happens. Beethoven has this E major chord, and he's like, I don't know if I want to be in the key of E major. I want to be in the key of C. Well, how do you get to C from E major? Well, we're just going to cancel out the G sharp right here and just go, okay. Now let's go directly to a G chord, which G and E minor are close. But now we're on G7, and G7 is the 5 chord of the key of C, and now we're set to head to C for just a second here, but it is a great way to do a transition. Beethoven does, you think about this way, you set out on a journey in C sharp minor. You did some work. and you made it to the key of E. You made it there just to go, never mind, E minor. And then you only hang out E minor for a split second before going on to the 5 of a C chord. So really kind of quick chord progression, even though this piece is slow and calm. We're really moving through a lot of harmony and a lot of key areas quickly. That's another great moment. Like, he goes through all this work. We finally make a really strong cadence in the key of B minor. And we get to B minor. And Beethoven just goes, I want B major. I actually recently did a video about how composers modulate. And I mentioned that Beethoven does pivot chord and direct modulation a ton. And this is a case of just like these direct modulations. Like, I mean, we're just B minor chord. Let's just make a B major chord. We're on an E major chord. Let's just make it E minor chord. So next up here, we have some cool stuff. I'm going to explain this first. We're going to give it a listen. Really focus on this top note chromaticism here. We're going to go. Then all that's supported by this kind of moving line in the left hand. But the melody here is just going. All right, let's give that a listen. Starting right here, we get this. F sharp minor. So far we've got to the key of E, then up to the key of B, then up to the key of F sharp. So we've kind of done like a little circle of fifths action. Like, we got our cadences have been on E, we had big cadence on B, we had a big cadence on F sharp, and let's see what happens next. Now we're in F sharp minor. Okay, right here I'm going to stop it and just chat about these chords. A lot of people, I have taught a lot of students who play this piece, and they say, I can play the whole thing except where it goes wild on the second page. Like, it just goes crazy with all these triplets, and it's so hard. I've taught people who say this, like, oh yeah, this piece is really easy until you get to this crazy arpeggio section. I think maybe this visually confuses people. Maybe they see the arpeggios and they assume they must play fast, or maybe they just don't have a lot of experience like changing fingers out as they go up and they panic. But these aren't that hard. I know I'm going to sound like a, jerk being like, it's not that hard, just learn it. But really what you need to think about is when you play these, find the bigger groups of chords. Like, if you play the first 4 notes all at the same time, D sharp, A, F sharp, B sharp, there's one chord. Then we're going to go over here and do it more. All those notes actually fit into one chord. That's D sharp, F sharp, A, B sharp, D sharp, F sharp, A, B sharp. So it's just 2 up, 1 down, 2 up, 1 down, 2 up, 1 down. I'm an octave higher, so it's a little easier to hear, but that's all that's going on here. Then the trick is just finding a way to transfer your fingers up to the higher notes. Like here. I'm a hypocrite. I told you it's not hard, I missed a note. See that? I found a good spot to transition here in the middle. 4 notes, thumb right here. Then I could reach the rest of them. The real issue people run into here is either they use chaos fingering, which means that you're playing and you just play whatever fingers happen to fall on the notes this time around. Like, it's okay to do this occasionally when you're learning a piece, just like, to experiment with a lot of fingerings, but they have played the piece for like months and they're still just like, it's whatever kind of falls on whatever note, and they never like cement a single fingering. That's a big problem. Another big problem is the fingering they decide on can be an oscillating fingering that only utilizes 2 fingers. This is a really big issue whenever you have an arpeggio moving up to do a repeating pattern of 2 fingers. You really want to avoid this. I don't want to say at all costs, but close to all costs, especially this situation right here. Check this out. You just have 1 2 1 2 1 2 like this. It seems attractive at first, or something like 1 3 1 3 1 3. Or something about 2 3 2 3. That one doesn't really work in this case. Whenever you have a repeating pattern like this, it's a mistake to put all the work on just 2 fingers, partially because accuracy, well, I would just say mainly because accuracy is such an issue. Because if you're doing this 2-finger plays is A. Then my thumb, as it lifts this D sharp, is needed for the very next note. Then this 2-finger lets go of the A, and it's needed for the very next note. And the thumb is needed for the very next note. Now, if you work out a good fingering, there will be times in your arpeggio where you need to do that, but not every single note. This, it's just hard because every note, the moment you let go, your thumb is needed for the very next note. So you don't want that. Also, it just leads to a lot of tension because you're just kind of playing back and forth on 2 fingers. So you try to find a pattern that requires less moving. So in this particular arpeggio, there's not exactly 1 finger and you have to do. There's also not going to be a repeating pattern. You're going to be able to do like 1 3 2 5 1 3 2 5 1 3 2 5. The book here says to do like 1 3 2 5 1 3 1 3 2 4 2 5. That seems a little overly complicated for me. I use a little simpler one like 1 3 2 5, and then I do 1 2 1 3, and then the same thing all the way to the top. And once I'm in this position, everything plays itself. But the point is, it's actually not near as hard as you think it is, so it's not crazy fast. A lot of fingerings will work. My point is, take your time, figure out a fingering you like, and then try to stick with it and actually learn it. Doing a great job here of bringing out the double stemmed notes. So double stemmed notes, when you see them in music, they're always there as a composer trying to help you peer into their mind. So Beethoven's using this double stemmed note here to let you know that, yeah, I mean, you're only going to play it once. Students get confused sometimes. Like, do you play a double stemmed note 2 times? Why is there 2 stems on it? The solution is actually really simple. It's just the composer trying to tell you what they're thinking. Like in this case, he's saying there's all these arpeggios going on. But then this double stem note is the melody, and you have. So you're bringing out the stem notes. Now, will you always bring out the double stem notes in every piece ever? Not necessarily. I guess I could say typically, but the thing is, you're trying to do is decipher what is Beethoven telling you by putting 2 stems on that note. What he's telling you is, that's the melody. The melody is down here because the melody and the pattern has now become embedded together. Like on a single note, there's a melody and a pattern at the same time. So let's listen to that section right here and try to hear him doing this. I'm going to back up a couple seconds here. Let's listen for that melody being brought out in the midst of everything else. Now there's no double stems, right? So he doesn't necessarily bring out a melodic note here because the melody's kind of gone for a sec. Main tune, back to the beginning. Nice. Now right here, remember earlier we talked about we ended that first section on E major. And then we just directly went to E minor. Beethoven said, I don't want E major. We went to E minor. And then from that, we went to this G7 chord and went to a C chord. And then kind of went on a whole different journey. Second time around, Beethoven, this is what makes Beethoven the best composer. If you think I'm right, you agree, put in the comments, yes, Ryan, you're right. Beethoven is the greatest composer. If you disagree, just lie. Make me feel better about myself. Just say Beethoven's the best composer because I think he is. Just lie. Just say Beethoven's the best, even if you don't think so. But yeah, what you have here, Beethoven is so brilliant with stuff like this. What he's done here is the first time around, he got in your ear that he's going to do this, E major, E minor. He's gotten that kind of seed planted in your brain where you're ready for that. But then the second time around, he does this. He goes to E major. And then he stays there. So it shouldn't be shocking. That's actually the normal version in a sense, because he went to E major and he stayed there for a little bit. But he taught you the first time that, nah, we're not going to stay in E major. We're just going to get to E major and then like go right to E minor. But the second time around, he actually gets to E major. We're like, well, we're not falling for that trick again, Beethoven. We are going to go to E minor. I know you are. And he stays in E major and has a little melody in E major here. So let's rewind a few seconds. Give that a good listen to really absorb that. Here it is. E major. Okay, we're going to go to E minor. Nah, stay in E major. Back to C sharp minor. If you watched my last video about the first Chopin ballade, if you haven't, go watch that video. It's great. I mean, not my video. The Chopin ballade is great, but hopefully my video is okay too. It started out on a Neapolitan chord. I'll give you kind of the quick version of it for those of you who had to listen to me talk about the Chopin Neapolitan. Neapolitan is flat 2. That piece starts like this and eventually gets to this chord. To this chord. You get... Great chord. That is the chord we have right here. So in the key of C sharp minor, the second note is D sharp. But if we flat that note or take away the sharp, we're left with D natural. We get a Neapolitan chord. Neapolitan chords want to go to 5 chords, which go back to 1 chords. So the progression we expect is this. The progression we get though is this. That's what we have going on here. We get this. Ooh, Neapolitan. Oops. Oh, I messed it up. I'm sorry, Beethoven. I butchered it for all of you. Following along, getting to the Neapolitan with me, I was too into it. I closed my eyes and felt it. So I cried. I told you I might cry a little. Now that is the end. Even though it's not really the end. I kind of lied to you, but it feels like the end, right? Every time you listen to a piece by Beethoven, any classical composer, even romantic composer in a sense, still you're looking for what we kind of call the true end of the piece. Like, where is the piece harmonically kind of reach the end of its journey? We're looking for a nice 5 chord that goes to a 1 chord. Ideally with 5 in the bass. And ideally with that in the melody. Or this. In this case, we don't get the correct melodic note, but this is really the true end of the piece. We get this progression here. Then everything else, the way to think about this is everything else is kind of like a party. Like, we made it back to the key of C sharp minor. Everything else is just kind of celebrating C sharp minor. Like, we made it. We arrived to C sharp minor. The rest of the piece here, we'll play it. We'll listen to it. It's really cool stuff. I don't mean the piece is actually over, but everything else is like a celebration of C sharp minor. We're not going to deviate. If you pay attention to this piece so far, we've been deviating from C sharp minor like nonstop. We're like C sharp, a measure later E, a measure later E minor, a measure later C, a measure later B. Like, it's been crazy. And now we're just going to kind of hang out in C sharp. We got this. More C sharp minor. This, the 5 of C sharp. Back to C sharp minor. More 5 or fully diminished 7 of C sharp. Back to C sharp, C sharp, C sharp, C sharp. Don't ever play it that fast. It sounds horrendous, but I'm just trying to show you what the chords do. Let's listen to this. Okay, here we go. And we make it back to C sharp minor at the end, which is good because we started in C sharp minor. We really want to make it back to C sharp minor before the whole piece is over. But we went through a lot of crazy places. This piece goes through just a journey, all the keys you get to. Like I said, it happens at a very rapid pace, especially considering how slow the piece is, how slow each measure goes by. You get through a lot of keys quickly. It's actually more like a fantasy, what we think of as a fantasy music where composers are more improvisational style than is a sonata, which is why at the very top here, he says, this is a sonata in the style of a fantasy. This is a sonata like a fantasy. So it's a fantasy sonata. He is writing a sonata. There's some structure here. There's a main theme that comes back. There's kind of a development section, but it's more of a fantasia. You're just going through interesting key areas. You're experiencing all these crazy like E major. What if E major becomes E minor? There's a lot more flexibility. Also that repeating pattern. You see a lot of that in like older fantasias as well. Like you get some repeated chord pattern that happens over and over again. Thanks for checking it out. If you had any particular questions about Moonlight that didn't get answered, feel free to let me know in the comments down below. And also let me know what other pieces you'd like to see me cover, other pieces or other composers that you see me talk about. Thanks for watching the video. See you guys next one.